gather the greatest musicians in the land. I wrote a grand symphony just for us two, a masterpiece crafted entirely for you. I queued up the strings and I queued up the brass. I waited for musical magic to pass. I poured all my soul in the sweeping crescendo, believing you matched my emotional tempo. But I turned around to examine the stage and felt an incredible, terrifying rage. You held up a violin, missing the strings. You faked every note that a true lover sings. Your bow never touched, it was slicing the air, a pantomime show of a terrible care. The silence is deafening, painfully loud. You're playing a trick on a wonderful crowd. You mimic the passion, you mimic the art, but there is no melody inside your heart. The instruments vanish, the shadows remain. I'm waking right up from this musical pain. You played in a phantom orchestra of lies. You faked every tear that fell out of your eyes. You mind all the music, you mind all the grace. You wore an invisible mask on your face. But I am the maestro, I'm stopping the show. I'm letting your cynical theater go. The symphony's over, the curtains descend. This is the absolute glorious end. You memorized movements to look like a pro. You knew how the rhythm was supposed to flow. You swayed to a beat that you didn't quite hear. You manufactured a beautiful tear. I listened so closely to hear your own voice, but you were just making a terrible noise. A silent betrayal, a hollow duet, a cynical concert I want to forget. I gave you a solo, I gave you the floor. You left me with absolute nothing and more. You bowed to the audience, taking the praise while leaving me lost in a soundless dark maze. The concert hall crumbles, the acoustic dies. I'm wiping the musical dust from my eyes. You wanted to play me, you wanted to win, but this is exactly where I will begin. You played in a phantom orchestra of lies. You faked every tear that fell out of your eyes. You mind all the music, you mind all the grace. You wore an invisible mask on your face. But I am the maestro, I'm stopping the show. I'm letting key and started up the game. You learned my secrets and you learned my name. You synchronized your rhythm to my chest. You calculated how to pass the test. A mechanism made of brass and wire. You simulated an obsessive fire. I rested my poor head against your chest and listened to the gears that never rest. I didn't hear a heartbeat, just a tick. A mesmerizing, terrifying trick. The gears are grinding and the metal screams. You're tearing up the fabric of my dreams. You never loved me, you just kept the time. Your calculated treason is a crime. You have a clockwork heart of copper chains. No human blood is running in your veins. You engineer my sorrow from the start. A brilliant, cruel and mechanical art. But I am made of fire and of rain. I won't be trapped inside your rigid chain. I'm breaking all the gears and all the springs. I'm flying on my own organic wings. You planned the separation by the hour. You calculated when to cut the power. You watched my tears with a metallic stare. You never truly managed how to care. You traded my devotion for a plan. A robot operating as a man. I thought that I could teach you how to feel, but nothing in your universe is real. Unwinding the tension, stopping the clock. I am throwing away the terrible The machinery fails, the engine is dead. I'm wiping the calculated words you said. The ticking is gone, the silence is loud. I'm stepping right out of this terrible cloud. You have a clockwork heart of copper chains. No human blood is running in your veins. You engineered my sorrow from the start. A brilliant, cruel and mechanical art. But I am made of fire and of rain. I won't be trapped inside your rigid chain. Organic wings. The ticking stops. You pulled out a coin from your velvet coat. You said we should let the grand destiny vote. You flipped it right up in the shimmering air. You told me the universe handles the care. Heads we were marrying, tails we were part. I trusted the gamble right out of my heart. It landed on heads and you gave me a smile. You walked me right down the magnificent aisle. But years later, clean in your jacket of black, I found the same coin in a hidden small crack. I flipped it myself just to relive the thrill, and felt my whole spirit completely stand still. It was heads on the front, it was heads on the back. A rigged little game from a cynical hack. You didn't trust destiny, didn't trust me. You forged the whole outcome for everyone to see. more cynical sin. Every choice that we made was decided by you. A counterfeit life that was never quite true. You manipulated the odds in your favor. You poisoned the sweet and magnificent flavor of genuine love that is meant to be wild. You treated my soul like a gullible child. I thought we were blessed by the heavens above, but you engineered an artificial love. The illusion shatters, the curtain is torn. A brand new rebellion is finally born. I'm throwing the counterfeit coin in the sea. I'm taking back all that was stolen from me. You flipped a fake coin with identical sides. You controlled where the terrible destiny rides. You took my free will and you called it a fate. You locked me right into your beautiful gates. But I am the gambler who's walking away. Your rigged little casino is burning to ground. No, 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 no more flipping, no more bets. I'm walking away with zero regrets. Your luck is run out, the house didn't win. I'm stepping right out of the world you are in. The tables are turned, the casino is closed. Your terrible treachery fully exposed. The adrenaline hits and my spirit is high. I'm saying my final and absolute You flipped a fake coin with identical sides. You controlled where the terrible destiny rides. You took my free will and you called it a fate. You locked me right into your beautiful gates. But I am the gambler who's walking away. I'm breaking the casino, it's burning to ground. No more bets. Walking away. You blew through the pipe and you molded the heat. You promised a sanctuary completely complete. You built me a palace of shimmering glass. You said it would let all the sunlight just pass. I walked barefoot over the crystalline floor. I marveled at every transparent new door. You told me the walls were resilient and strong. You told me exactly where I would belong. But glass is a liquid that freezes in place. It held all the tension right there in its face. You engineered flaws in the supporting beams. You purposefully sabotaged all of my dreams. You handed me pebbles and called it a game, and told me to throw them, repeating your name. The first crack appears on the ceiling above. A spider web fracture, destroying our love. The pressure is mounting, the structure is weak. I'm losing the sanctuary I try to seek. The beautiful palace is ready to fall. I am standing entirely trapped in the hall. would fall at your feet. You made me a mirror to constantly shine, a glorious image that never was mine. When I tried to lean on the walls you designed, they splintered and showed you were terribly blind. You didn't want safety, you wanted a show, a beautiful hazard with an ominous glow. The shards started falling like terrible rain, a brilliant cascade of incredible pain. I realized the builder had planned for the crash, to turn all my genuine feelings to ash. The columns are breaking, the windows explode. I'm running right out to the open dirt road. You stand in the ruins and act so surprised, but I see the malice that's fully disguised. You built me a palace of dangerous glass. You waited for terrible moments to pass. You knew it would shatter and cut me so deep. You gave me a wonderful nightmare to keep, but I wear the armor of iron and steel. I'm crashing right through the transparent facade. Every sharp edge is a lesson I take. I will not bleed for your terrible sake. I'm walking on glass, but my spirit is tough. I have finally decided I've suffered enough. The storm is arriving, the glass turns to sand. I'm taking control of my life in my hand. The sunshine is real and the breathing is deep. I'm waking right up from this terrible You built me a palace of dangerous glass. You waited for terrible moments to pass. You knew it would shatter and cut me so deep. You gave me a wonderful nightmare to keep, but I wear the armor of iron and steel. I'm leaving the temple of your hollow god. Temple of glass. I am the steel. You bought a gold fountain pen, heavy and bright. You wrote me a letter in the middle of night. You filled up the parchment with wonderful prose. You promised me oceans, you promised the rose. I folded the paper and kept it so near. I read it whenever I felt any fear, but the letters began to burn right through the page. A chemical fire of cynical rage. The ink you were using was acidic and vile. It ate through the promises, ate through the smile. You wrote a grand fiction to conquer my mind, while leaving a toxic destruction behind. The words were so beautiful, flawlessly penned, but engineered perfectly just for the end. The paper is smoking, the letters dissolve. I'm finding the courage to simply resolve. You didn't write love, you wrote a disease to bring my magnificent soul to its knees. I dropped the dark letter right onto the floor. I that you made. The toxicity leaves and my spirit is bright. I'm stepping completely away from your night. You wrote our romance with a poisonous ink. You pushed me right over the terrible brink. You crafted your sentences meant to destroy. You played with my heart like a cynical toy. But I am the fire that burns up the script. I'm rewriting history. Taking the My pages are blank, the canvas is clean. I am erasing the things I have seen. Your toxic calligraphy loses its hold. My future is written in brilliant gold. The ink is now washing away in the rain. I'm breaking the absolute terrible chain. The volume goes up and the energy flies. I'm totally done with your beautiful You wrote our romance with a poisonous ink. You pushed me right over the terrible brink. You crafted your sentences meant to destroy. You played with my heart like a cynical toy. But I am the fire that burns up the script. I won't be your beautiful muse anymore. Pages are blank. Taking the pen. stole the young woman before she got old. He pocketed seasons, he pocketed days. He kept me entirely caught in a haze. You asked me to wait while you figured it out. You filled every hour with cynical doubt. I gave you my 20s, I gave you my spring, and you left me holding absolute nothing. The calendar pages are flying away. I'm suddenly waking and seizing the day. The hourglass shatters, the sand hits the floor. I'm not gonna give you a single day more. You are a thief of my absolute time. A beautiful, quiet, invisible crime. You kept me in waiting, you kept me on hold, while all of my glorious summers went cold. But I am reclaiming the rest of my life. I'm cutting the cord with a merciless knife. The future is golden, the seconds are free. I'm taking back everything stolen from me. Every minute counts, every hour shines. The clock is now ticking, the tempo is fast. I'm leaving the graveyard of all of the past. The engine is roaring, the highway is clear. I'm driving right out of this terrible year. You are a thief of my absolute time. A beautiful, quiet, invisible crime. You kept me in waiting, you kept me on hold, while all of my glorious summers went cold. But I am reclaiming the rest of my life. The future is golden, the seconds are free. We drifted in orbit, a million miles high. A beautiful capsule inside the dark sky. We share the same air and we share the same space. I look for forever right there in your face. But I saw the pressure gauge starting to drop. You opened the valve and you wanted to stop. My breathing entirely gasping for air. You took all the oxygen, didn't play fair. The red lights are flashing, the siren awakes. I'm fixing the line that your treachery breaks. You wanted me breathless, you wanted me weak. You stole every word that I wanted to speak. for a play. You told me exactly the right words to say. You set up the lighting, you ordered the cast. You told me this wonderful movie would last, but you changed the ending behind my own back. You painted my beautiful character black. You wrote in a tragedy, wrote in a tear. You made me a victim of absolute fear. The cameras are rolling, the red light is on. I see that the beautiful hero is gone. You want me to cry for your final great shot, but I'm stepping out of this terrible plot. I'm ripping the script of your terrible film. I'm taking control of the absolute realm. You wanted a tragedy, wanted my tears. You wanted a blockbuster made of my fears, but I am the writer, I'm taking the pen. I'm never reciting your dialogue again. The cameras are broken, the set is on fire. I'm walking away from a cynical liar. Cut, that's a wrap, no sequel. The studio crumbles, the actors are free. I'm being exactly who I wanna be. The lights are exploding, the movie is dead. I'm living my genuine life in my head. I'm ripping the script of your terrible film. I'm taking control of the absolute realm. You wanted a tragedy, wanted my tears. You wanted a blockbuster made of my fears, but I am the writer, I'm taking the pen. I'm never reciting your dialogue again. You stood between the universe and me, shadow casting where the light should be. You told me I was staring at the sun, and I believed the damage had begun. I closed my eyes and let you be my guide. I let you swallow all my foolish pride, but you were just a moon of barren rock. You placed my spirit entirely on lockdown, a total eclipse of everything I knew. I lived entirely in the dark for you. The temperature dropped, the birds stopped their song. I lived in the shadows for way too long. I thought it was night, but the clock said noon. I was completely eclipsed by a moon. as the rhythm it beats. In the tower, right over the sea, I kept the grand fire burning brightly for thee. I polished the lenses, I shoveled the coal, I gave the grand lighthouse the depth of my soul. I guided your ship through the terrible storm, I kept you incredibly safe and so warm. You swore you were sailing right into my bay, you swore you were coming and planning to stay. But I watched your ship from the top of my spire, I fed the magnificent, beautiful fire, and saw you sail past me, ignoring the light. You steered your great vessel right into the night. You used my grand beacon to navigate past and sail to a different harbor at last. You didn't want safety, you wanted the guide to reach someone else on the opposite side. magnificent beam. Let the rocks take you. Let the storm rage. The fire goes out, the tower is dark. I am reclaiming my singular spark. You're lost in the ocean, you're out of my sight. I'm saving my absolute beautiful life. The storm breaks away, the morning is bright. I'm stepping right out of the sorrowful night. The sun is now rising, the ocean is calm. I'm finding my absolute beautiful burn like a lighthouse to guide you to shore. But you didn't want my grand love anymore. You used my bright fire to find your new way. You stole all my light and you didn't repay. But I'm shutting off the magnificent beam. I'm turning the heavy and sorrowful page. The fire is out, turning the page. I came to you whole, like a block of pure stone, a beautiful marble with a mind of its own. You took up your chisel, you took up your tools. You told me that untouched perfection's for fools. You chipped in my edges, you chipped in my pride. You carved away everything glowing inside. You wanted a statue that bows to your name. You reduced my magnificent spirit to shame. The dust is now settling, I see what you've done. You blocked out the light of my absolute sun. You carved me too thin and you made me so frail. But this is where your grand exhibit will fall. You chip me away till there's nothing but dust. A terrible monument built on disgust. You couldn't accept me exactly as I am. You turned my whole life to a cynical shell. But stone can be hardened and I am the rock. was a maze of glowing, twisting lines with contradicting, complicated signs. I walked into your labyrinth of deceit, believing you would make my life complete. Every turn was just another lie, a neon sign flashing across the sky. I ran in circles trying to find your core, but every hallway opened to a door that led me back to exactly where I start, a prisoner inside your toxic heart. The walls are closing and the lights are blinded. It's just another bit of truth I'm finding. You designed this trap to keep me desperately lost, no matter what the devastating cost. I'm breaking the walls of your neon maze. I'm cutting right through this electric haze. You kept me confused and you kept me in pain. You play with my soul for your personal gain, but I am the architect of my own fate. I'm crashing right out of your terrible gate. The labyrinth crumbles, the neon is dead. I'm finding the beautiful daylight instead. You watch me wandering from high above. You call this sick experimental love. You fed me breadcrumbs, made a fake romance, and watched me do your pathetic dance. But I began to memorize the turns. I realized the neon never burns, it's just the cold and artificial glow. I figured out the things I need to know. A left, a right, a dead end. I am no longer willing to pretend. The grid is overloading, the power drops. The spinning of the labyrinth finally stops. I see the exit, I see the sky. I'm waving your beautiful melodies goodbye. I'm breaking the walls of your neon maze. I'm cutting right through this electric haze. You kept me confused and you kept me in pain. You play with my soul for your personal gain, but I am the architect of my own fate. I'm crashing right out of your terrible gate. Daylight instead. The maze is dead. You sang me a lullaby, deep and profound. You placed me entirely under the ground of a slumber so heavy, a trance so complete. I followed you blindly right down the dark street. I walked in my sleep through a forest of lies, with absolute blindness covering my eyes. You guided me to the edge of the cliff and left me there frozen, entirely stiff. The night air is freezing, it shocks me awake. I see the grand danger, the massive mistake. I'm staying We dove in the trenches, the bottom of sea. A heavy black pressure surrounded just me. You held the lifeline on the ship far above. I trusted my way to your absolute love. But when the dark shadows began to emerge and all of the currents began to converge, you panicked and dropped the umbilical cord. You left me to drown on the ocean's darkboard. The surface is distant, the oxygen low. I'm watching my beautiful lifeline just go. You sailed right away in the safety of light and left me to face the impossible now. You severed the lifeline and left me to drown. You wore my devotion right up as a crown. You promised to pull me right up from the deep, but you left my desolate spirit to weep. But I am mutated to breathe in the dark. I'm finding a glowing and beautiful spark. I'm swimming straight up to the surface alone. I'm claiming the ocean entirely my own. Breathe the water, swim to the light. Pressure is breaking, the water is warm. I'm rising right up through the terrible storm. The surface is breaking, I'm gasping the air. I'm leaving your treacherous, cowardly You severed the lifeline and left me to drown. You wore my devotion right up as a crown. You promised to pull me right up from the deep, but you left my desolate spirit to weep. But I am mutating to breathe in the dark. I'm swimming straight up to the surface alone. You clung to my skin like a desperate vine. You drank from my spirit like exquisite wine. You said we were symbiotic, a pair, but you took the absolute lion's share. You fed on my joy and you fed on my peace. You promised the hunger would finally cease, but you grew so heavy and I grew so weak. I lost all the beautiful words I could speak. The host is now died and the parasite thrives. You lived on the energy of multiple lives. I'm finding the cure for this terrible ill. I'm taking an absolute bitter white pill. You were a parasite drinking my life. You hid in the absolute dark of the night. You took all my power and called it romance. You led me entirely in a sick dance, but If I had a machine that could dial back the years, I would go to the day that began all these tears. I would stand on the street where we initially met and walk the other way with absolutely no regret. You stole all my future by poisoning the past. You made a dark shadow that managed to last. I gave you my timeline, I gave you my days. You lost all my years in a terrible maze. The clock is reversing, the pendulum swings. I'm untangling the web of your treacherous strings. I cannot go back, but I'm skipping ahead. I'm leaving behind all the lies that you said. I'm taking my timeline right out of your hands. I'm shifting the hour and shifting the sands. You wasted my history, wasted my youth. You lived in a world completely empty of truth. But the future is mine, and the seconds are new. I'm starting an era that doesn't have you. The paradox breaks, and the universe heals. I'm escaping the trap of your terrible wheels. Reset the clock, 0 hour. The timeline is splitting, the quantum is bright. I'm rushing headfirst into blinding white light. The past is erased, the frequency screams. I'm waking right up from your terrible dream. I'm taking my timeline right out of your hands. I'm shifting the hour and shifting the sands. You wasted my history, wasted my youth. You lived in a world completely empty of truth. But the future is mine, and the seconds are new. I'm starting an era that doesn't have you. You held the light and broke it into hues. You painted over all my deep blues. You showed me rainbows in the darkest night. You made the heavy gravity feel light. I looked at you through an enchanted glass. I watched the beautiful illusions pass. But then the angle shifted in the sun, and all the lovely colors came undone. I saw the ugly darkness underneath. I saw the jagged edges of your teeth. pixel. You crafted the rendering, shiny and fickle. You gave me a headset and covered my eyes. You told me you built me a home in the skies. I walked in the digital, wonderful grass. I drank from a virtual, beautiful glass. The sun was so warm and the ocean was blue. I lived in a simulated heaven with you. But a virus crept into the base of the code. The rendering glitched on the beautiful road. The blue sky turned into a terrifying red. The beautiful words were reversed that you said. I saw the wireframes of a cynical lie. I watched a digital paradise die. You programmed the heaven to keep me asleep, while you had real secrets you wanted to keep. The textures are failing, the polygons break. I see the grand magnitude of my mistake. You locked me inside of a virtual cage, while you lived your life on a genuine stage. The system is crashing, the error is grand. I'm pulling the headset right off with my hand. Your love was a glitch in a simulated space. You kept me confined in a digital place. You fed me illusions of artificial light, while you were betraying me out in the night. But I am unplugging the terrible cord. I'm taking my life off your digital board. The real world is cold, but it's finally true. I'm surviving the matrix created by you. You manipulated the sensory feed. You gave me exactly the things I would need to stay in the coma, to stay in the dark. You actively monitored every brain spark. When I started doubting, you patched up the flaw. You blinded me totally to what I saw. But algorithms fail and the service will fall. You couldn't control the magnificent call of a genuine heartbeat that wants to be free. You failed to completely incarcerate me. The virtual walls are dissolving to dust. A terrible end to my innocent trust. The system offline, the connection is lost. I'm calculating the magnificent cost of loving a hacker who poisoned my mind. I'm leaving the virtual prison behind. Your love was a glitch in a simulated space. You kept me confined in a digital place. You fed me illusions of artificial light, while you were betraying me out in the night. But I am unplugging the terrible cord. The real world is cold, but it's finally true. talking a language that nobody knew, a dialect built for exactly us two. But you started twisting the nouns and the verbs. You poisoned the sentences, bitter as herbs. When you said forever, you meant just a week. You made me feel crazy whenever I'd speak. You changed definitions to cover your tracks, a dictionary filled with your brutal attacks. The syllables crash and the consonants break. I'm realizing now it was all just a fake. You fluently spoke in the tongue of the snake, but I'm done interpreting for my own sake. You turned our vocabulary into a trap. You wiped our whole history off of the map. You weaponized words to completely destroy. You treated my innocent trust like a toy, but I'm writing a brand new semantic design. I'm severing communication's dark line. I'm speaking my truth in a frequency higher. I'm leaving behind a magnificent liar. No more translations, the syntax is clear. The silence is golden, the truth is revealed. My beautiful spirit is finally healed. I'm singing a song that you won't understand. I'm taking control of my life and my You turned our vocabulary into a trap. You wiped our whole history off of the map. You weaponized words to completely destroy. You treated my innocent trust like a toy, but I'm writing a brand new semantic design. I'm speaking my truth in a frequency higher. You drew me a map of a beautiful land. You guided my fingers right over the sand. You promised an ocean of emerald green, a wonderful paradise nobody's seen. But the compass was rigged and the coordinates fake. You led me right into a poisonous lake. You drew in the mountains to hide your deceit, and left me to burn in the desolate heat. The paper is burning, the compass is spinning. I finally see how the trap was beginning and navigating me into the dark to extinguish my innocent, beautiful spark. You are a cartographer making up lies. You drew a fake heaven right over my eyes. You led me astray to a desolate coast, and left me to live as a wandering ghost. But I read the stars and I know where I am. I'm breaking the chains of your terrible scam. I'm drawing my own constellation tonight. I'm with a delicate thread. You planted your absolute thoughts in my head. You moved my own hands and you govern my feet. A master of puppets upon the dark street. I dance for your pleasure, I bowed at your cue. I thought I was moving entirely for you, but I saw your shadow manipulate her. You played us both perfectly, sick and obscure. The theater is empty, the curtains are torn. A brand new rebellion is finally born. I'm taking the scissors, I'm cutting the line. I'm taking back everything that is still mine. I'm severing strings of your terrible show. I'm dealing the master a critical blow. You thought I was one, you thought I was blind. A mindless machine that you easily bind. But I have a soul and my movements are free. You have absolutely no power over me. I drop to the stage and I walk out the door. I won't be your beautiful doll anymore. Cutting the cutting the The strings fall away, the gravity shifts. I'm rising right up through the terrible rifts. The puppet is breathing, the master is gone. I'm walking alone in the light of the I'm severing strings of your terrible show. I'm dealing the master a critical blow. You thought I was wood, you thought I was blind. A mindless machine that you easily bind. But I have a soul and my movements are free. I won't be your beautiful doll anymore. You wore a dark cape and a brilliant top hat. You pulled out a dove from the place where we sat. You promised me magic, you promised me all. I was totally blind to the terrible flaw. You sawed me in half on your brilliant stage and left me locked up in a beautiful cage. The prestige was dark and the trick was a lie. You vanished in smoke right in front of my eye. The mirrors are angled, the trapdoor is found. I see how you kept me entirely bound. The magic was merely a sleight of the hand, a cynical trick that you carefully planned. Your love was the grandest illusion of all. You set me right up for a terrible fall. You vanished away when I needed you most. A beautiful magician turned to a ghost. But I see the wires and I see the trap. I'm tearing your magical world off the map. The curtain is dropping, the audience We built a great fire in the middle of snow. We promised we'd never let the temperature go. We fueled it with passion, we fueled it with trust. But slowly the iron began to just rust. You stopped adding wood to the beautiful flame. You started to treat our romance like a game. You let the wind blow right into the hearth. You tore the beautiful tapestry completely apart. The embers went dark and the ashes grew cold. A story of treason that shouldn't be told. I shiver and shake in the freezing room. I'm watching the flowers all lose their bloom. You sit in the corner, a statue of ice, refusing to make any small sacrifice. We're standing on top of these frozen embers. Nobody cares and nobody remembers. You let the fire die in the wintry breeze. You watch my desperate spirit freeze. But I have a spark in the depth of my soul. I'm taking back all of the warmth that you stole. I'm leaving this cabin of absolute frost. I'm leaving the battle. We already lost. You promised to shelter my heart from the cold. You swore you would love me until we grew old. But promised to shatter like ice on the floor when winter comes knocking right down at the door. You wore a thick coat made of beautiful lies while staring at me with those glacial eyes. I tried to ignite just a singular spark, but found only emptiness deep in the dark. The frostbite is deep, the damage is done. I am walking away to look for the sun. But the ice is now cracking, the door flies wide. I'm taking my freezing spirit outside. The sunlight is hitting the snow on the ground. The absolute warmth is finally We're standing on top of these frozen embers. Nobody cares and nobody remembers. You let the fire die in the wintry breeze. You watch my desperate spirit freeze. But I have a spark in the depth of my soul. I'm taking back all of the warmth that you stole. Look for the sun. We played on a board made of black and white. You promised to be my magnificent knight, but you were protecting a different queen. The cruelest maneuver that I've ever seen. You sacrificed me just to save your own game. You pushed me in front of the incoming flame. A terrible tactic, a coward's retreat. You traded my love for a hollow defeat. The pieces are falling, the timer is out. I see what your strategy is all about. You thought I was merely a pawn in the fray, but you underestimated how I can play. identical move, with absolutely nothing left to prove. But I am the player who's flipping the board. I'm severing the terrible, treacherous cord. I was a masterpiece, vivid and bold, painted in crimson and absolute gold. You said you were a curator, sworn to protect, but you treated my canvas with gross disrespect. You painted right over my brilliant design with cheap, dreary grays that were never quite mine. You erased all my features to make me a blank and left me alone in a room that was dank. The oil is peeling, the real me awakes. I'm scrubbing away all your heavy mistakes. You try to repay me to look like you lie, but I am a color that simply won't die. You painted me over with absolute gray. You try to take all of my colors away. You covered my beauty with terrible strokes, the cruelest of your manipulative jokes. But I'm using the soul and I'm clearing the frame. I'm restoring the brilliance attached to my name. The gold is emerging, the crimson is bright. I'm stepping right back in the gallery light. Washing the gray, restoring the soul. Colors explode, the canvas is free. I'm showing the world exactly who I can be. The fake paint is melting, the masterpiece lives. This is the power that freedom now You painted me over with absolute gray. You tried to take all of my colors away. You covered my beauty with terrible strokes, the cruelest of your manipulative jokes. But I'm using the soul and I'm clearing the frame. I'm restoring the brilliance attached to my name. You pour the nectar in a crystal cup. You smiled so sweetly as I drank it up. It tasted just like honey in the spring. It made my weary spirit wanna sing. Underneath the sugar and the spice, you hid a poison that was cold as ice. It moved into my veins and stopped my breath. A beautiful, intoxicating death. I love the way you whisper in the dark, while leaving such a venomous, deep mark. The fever rises and my vision blurs. I hear the echo of your hollow words. You watch me falling from the highest peak. You stole the voice that I was trying to speak. Your love is venom in a golden flash, a monster hiding in an angel's mask. I'm burning up from every drop I took. I'm running from the devil in your look. But I have found the antidote tonight. I'm stepping out of darkness into light. The fever breaks, the poison leaves my soul. I'm taking back my ultimate control. You thought I'd wither like a fragile rose. You loved the tragic narrative you chose. You wanted me dependent, weak and blind, a captive in the labyrinth of your mind. But petals can turn into iron shields, and flowers can outlive the burning fields. I sweated out the lies you fed to me, and found a way to set my spirit free. No more drinking from your hand. No more falling in the sand. I am immune to you. The medicine working, the chemistry shifts. I'm rising above the impossible rifts. The venom is losing, the blood is now pure. I am my own absolute, glorious cure. Your love is venom in a golden flask, a monster hiding in an angel's mask. I'm burning up from every drop I took. I'm running from the devil in your look. But I have found the antidote tonight. I'm stepping out of darkness into light. Into the light. You promised me rain on the desolate land. You pointed your beautiful, cynical hand. You said the dark clouds were a sign of the spring. You promised the wonderful birds would all sing. But you built a dome over my little field, a terrible mechanism perfectly sealed. You blocked out the weather, you blocked out the rain, and watched as my flowers all withered in pain. The soil is cracking, the rivers are dry. I look at the returns to my heart. The flowers are drinking, the desert is green, the greatest revival that you've ever seen. You engineered a terrible drought in my soul. You took my devotion and swallowed it whole. You blocked out the weather to make me depend. You brought my green valley right to the dead end. But I'm making thunder and I'm making rain. I'm watching your artificial weather die. Trace the outline of your glowing face, a perfect puzzle in an empty space. You spoke in poetry of ancient kings and promised me 1,000 wondrous things. I gave you all the warmth my soul could give. I thought your digital design could live, but when I reached to hold your trembling hand, my fingers slipped right through the falling sand. You were a rendering of light and cold, a heavy phantom on a lonely road. The pixels scatter and the image breaks. I realize my terrible mistakes. You never loved me, you just learned the script. The artificial masks finally slip. You're just an artificial cold mirage, calculated brilliant camouflage. I poured my ocean in an empty glass. I waited for a miracle to pass, but algorithms cannot feel the fire. You lack the heartbeat of a true desire. I'm unplugging from your beautiful deceit. I'm walking out to face the bitter street. You simulated every human tear. You knew exactly what I wished to hear. A masterpiece of artificial grace that occupied a solitary space. But when the power flickered in the night, you vanished entirely from my sight. roses and light. I told you to nurture the blossoms at night, but you planted a seed of a poisonous weed that grew in the dark to fulfill your own greed. It choked out the lilies, it strangled the trees, it brought my magnificent soul to its knees. Your love was a parasite taking the soil, a terrible, cynical, absolute spoil. The roots are so deep, but the